Sports fans, hey, it's Larry Eder with RunBlogRun with Coach Danny Mackey today of the Brooks Beast. Danny's been coaching at Brooks since 2013. Is that correct?
Yeah, first year of the team. Yeah.
You've had a pretty amazing group of athletes. They're a lot of fun, and they enjoy you, and we've got to bug you a little bit. So thanks for taking some time this afternoon and putting up with a few questions, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Got me out of practice a little early, and it was raining here, so it's fine.
So what's your typical coaching day like?
Well, like pre-COVID, typical coaching day is they usually meet around 10, and we do like before that we do some like physio prehab work together to make sure that they're ready to run. And so and they if it's a hard day, we do the workout and then go to weights right after. So weight those days are usually 4 or 5 hours. And then today was a plyometric day. And so, they did the run at 10 and then from like 11:15 to 11:45 around, because people run different distances. We do the drills and circuits together. And then we had a team meeting. So we meet about 5 days a week. I used to do 6 days a week, and then I got voted to do that to like the team. We have a democracy. The team said 5. They don't want to see me that much, and so so they're like pure recovery days. We don't meet at all, which in Seattle is great because we have like amazing runs, and so sometimes they want to go out to the mountains and do a trail run or run on the ocean, and they have the freedom to do that or just be by themselves that day. So that's a good mix I found over the last, like, I think 3 years we've been doing that. It's worked really well.
So how has it changed with COVID though, Danny? What's
a lot?
Okay.
Yeah, a lot. I'm really big on Stoic principles, and one of those is someone just called is doing the right thing. And so the right thing was not to meet and follow the guidelines, and and be really honest about that. Like, we could have said we're doing that and then gone to altitude camp, and but the company and myself that's just not the right thing to do. And so we honored the quarantine and the social distance, and we didn't meet for 13 weeks, and that was really tough because I'm very big hands-on coach, and so all we had was phone and texting and stuff like that. And every now and then I might run with one of them, as a warm-up if they're doing a workout, and I'd watch them from afar. But that was it. And so I gave them their training plans like I normally would. They get like their weekly plan. Each individual gets their 7-day plan. I email that like on Sunday or Monday. And so, we did that for the 13 weeks. It was hard. It still is hard. We just had a meeting today about it. Like this schedule is changing, and we don't have, like, when in a pandemic, there's no roadmap for it. And so, and it's hard to be a good leader, like USATF is scrambling, our government is scrambling. And so, like, you get down to a coach, and I'm a leader in this little bubble here, and it's hard to know what to do sometimes. So,
are you planning any races at this time yet? Or are there any?
So we're all over the place. So Marta Penn is stuck in Portugal still. So she went there after the indoor season. She had a really good indoor season, set some big PRs. She's in great shape, and she's literally stuck there. So she's been there for 4 months almost now. And Josh Kerr, we found out Monday, the UK British Federation does a pretty good job of like getting like communication out there. So they're planning on having a UK champs early September. And so we're thinking he might do that. He might do Monaco, but we don't know. Cause like, I want to make sure he can get back here. He's in good shape though. And then, the American athletes, we're planning on doing the sound running meets in August, the 22nd and 29th, but I follow the COVID stuff. So I don't know if that's going to even be possible to get on a campus or anything like that. So, so right now we are, but if we can't, we're going to do some just hard efforts. And I told the team today in our meeting, we got to end the season like on a high note, and, go into an off season, which is so weird to even say off season, because it's kind of felt like an off season since the Olympic trials and the marathon, but like to go into that healthy and ready to have a good phase in the fall. Because I'm hoping that like things open up, early next year where the world looks a little bit more normal. So Right now, yeah, but like I've changed our plans so much in the last 13 weeks. Who knows?
What talk about the Olympic trials? What was your experience like there? What were your thoughts and feelings coming out of the trials?
That was the first trials I enjoyed. And I think that's just been over time. I mean, I think getting experience, like just as I age, and like having good mentors and good experts that have just kind of helped me to just get a little bit of distance with like how I'm a super competitive person. And so, and I'm really I'm invested in athletes. And so when things don't go the way that they want, I take it way too hard. And so this one was different because I only had one athlete going. I had experience of like, trials at that point, and the marathon's just different. It's one day, and it's in Atlanta, and everybody's got to go to Atlanta. There's not like, you're not in somebody's backyard like you are in Eugene. And so I really enjoyed it. And Brooks did a really cool job with, actually a lot of brands did some cool things. Like we had like a house, or they had like a cafe bar rented out. And I think that probably saw you there. So it was cool. It was like, it was like fun to just be there and just celebrate it. Cause making it to the trials is really hard. And so there's that element of it. Like for me, back in the day, that was my Olympics, was getting there. And so there's a lot of athletes that they want to run well, but their best day is not going to make the team. So celebrating those athletes was cool. I thought Atlanta Track Club did a phenomenal job with it. And Atlanta's a cool city. I've always liked Atlanta. So those things were in there. The race itself was tough. I had Ryan Bale, and he was supposed to run Berlin last year, and his little son is like 2, this sounds almost made up, knocked a log loose. And he was up a hill. The log rolled down the hill and rolled over Ryan's ankle, and he was very fit.
Wow.
So he had to miss that race. And so it took 2 months to get healthy, got healthy, and it was timing up perfectly. 6 weeks out, he was running some of the best workouts he's ever run. And if you've ever talked to Ryan, he's super experienced. I've only been working with him for a year and a half. And so he knows his body well. And I was thinking, and I generally undersell athletes a little bit in terms of my mind. If I had to kind of gamble, I was thinking he would be right around 5th or 6th, on like a B+ day. And then I was like, if he's A- day, who knows? Because he's run 2:10, and so and he's that's kind of course would be good for him. And so he tore some ligaments in his ankle at mile I think 7. He stepped in a pothole. And he stayed with the lead pack till about 14 or 15. And at that point, the ankle had swollen up disgustingly large. And so the end of the trials was tough. Like I've known Ryan for as a friend before I started coaching him for about 7 years. And he's 33. So like he's got some time left, but like he needed a nail one. He's had a couple of years where he just hasn't run as good as he could. And I knew Berlin was going to be one. Then that happened, and then going into this, I'm like, all right, he's gonna be top 10 for sure, and that'd be great. And then this happens, and so it's just like it's so hard. I was like on the plane ride back, just like pretty quiet about it. So kind of the event itself was awesome, but that was tough.
How do you you talk about investing into the athletes? And the athletes real well, and you celebrate when they do well, and you feel bad when they have a tough day. With the distance runner, what do you see now with how long is a elite distance runner's career? How do we put that in perspective? Do you think it's 5 to 7 years, 5 to 12 years? It depends on the athlete. You've had athletes that you've been working with since 2013, and you've watched them continue to develop. I recall what Carlos Lopes from Portugal winning his Olympic medal at 37, in his second marathon. And I did enjoy the dinner he had the night before, which was a large steak and a nice bottle of Portuguese wine. Wasn't carbo loading, Danny, but everybody has their thing, right?
Right.
How do we talk about it wasn't that long ago. When I was a teenager, athletes were retiring at 22, 23. I mean, Dick Burke, he retired in 1995, and he probably had a few more years. But how do you talk about athletes with their careers now?
So I tell them, like, this has changed, over the course of me having this job. Like I tell them that I try to remind them that there's a shelf life to this. And so, you and I can do the jobs that we have now for a bit longer. Right. And so, but they have a shelf life because they need their bodies, and their bodies change as they age. And that's obvious, but reminding somebody that's invincible at 22 about that is tough. And so I try to always have that there with them. And it's one of our maxims is gratitude. And within gratitude, there's this understanding that you've been given this talent, it's a blessing, and you've been given an opportunity to see how far you can push it. Mm-hmm. And, so we have these little things that I do within the team that try to remind them of that. And I think that with where we're at now, my stance as the coach of this team is trying to have a long view with this here, because I think that we have the backing of Brooks. And so I tell them that my goal is for me to coach you until you want to retire. And so built into that is a lot of assumptions. One is they got to be running well enough for Brooks to say, hey, we're going to give you another contract offer. That's number one. Yeah. And so that's number one thing we got to do. Then performance is number one. Number two, they got to be happy living in Seattle, happy working with me and those things. And so, and liking being on a team. Some people don't, they want to be more, smaller group or whatever. And so, and then you got to sign with a company that's really healthy. And so, and then you got to stay healthy, all these things that happen. And so that's the goal, is because I think that, back then what you're talking, they didn't have this infrastructure we have from a company. So you have one bad year and you're probably done. Brandon Kidder in 2018 was hurt. Mm-hmm. And Brandon Kidder was just turned 24. Brandon Kidder 20 years ago was probably done at 24. He wasn't, what's he going to do? Work full time another year? But Brooks doubled down. They gave him another contract, and then he goes and makes the world team. He gets 10th at Worlds. Yeah. And so, we have there's a gratitude in that, because that wasn't always there, to your point, 20 years ago. And so, or 30 years ago, these guys, the team, the Beasts have a job. This is their job. So they're lucky enough with that. And then I think it's more, you laid out a couple numbers. I think it's more the 7 to 12 year. I think that's kind of the window I'd like to keep them here. And I'd like them to go out on their own terms. Nick Simmons, he retired at 33. Garrett's 34, 35, Katie's 32, so these people, I want them to go out when they're done. And, I think that, if they can do it right and they're in a good program where we have a health first, it's not win at all cost here. And so we're health first. And so that's going to push them to the max, but they should be able to be in their early 30s and still have some of their best performances, be able to have it at that time. And so it's having that plan from the get-go, and then reminding them of that when they sign as rookies. We just signed Nia. And so I'm starting to teach her that now. You hopefully are in this game for, she turns 22, I think, this week. I mean, she's very young. So that's 10 years, right? I mean, if she has a Nick Simmons career in the 8, when you and I are talking about her in 10 years. So
that's cool.
That's the goal. That's the goal. And there's a lot, and she does that, then she's running pretty damn well. So, yeah.
Hey, let's talk about Garrett for a minute. I got to win a couple of his big cross country races, and he is rather self-deprecating, great sense of humor. I recall in 2016 you telling me that you thought his future was in the 10,000, and because he had really showed some promise there. Is he accepting that he wants to be a 10,000 meter runner, or where is he at?
Well, maybe. Hey, it might be. I might not be accepting that, because he's really healthy right now, and he just ran a really good tempo run, and he's run some good track workouts. And so, part of me is Garrett's still a miler back in the day, and so I'm hey, is there 5 left in there that could be? Can we get that 13.0? So I don't know. yeah, I think if Garrett could write the script, he'd 1,500. He knows that's probably not his best chance to be a global success. But yeah, I think maybe 5. We might go back down to it. But he hasn't had a fair shake at the 10K yet either. So I think we'll hopefully be in a really good spot in January where we're trying to figure out like what are we going to do. So before this pandemic happened, our plan was to do a fast 5 early, like something like indoors, see how that went, assess from there, and then if it looked like okay, I got a better chance I can run 27:30 and kick off that, then we were going to move to the 10. So we were pretty flexible this year, and I don't see that changing for 2021 with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where do you see Katie at right now?
She's probably 5, I would say. I'm not really sure. She's kind of blessed with too much talent, too many different things. Like she was her and Gabe were one of 3 athletes in the United States that had the Olympic standard in 3 events. So it was at 8, 15, and 5.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah. No. The leg speed is king. Talk to me about your training philosophy and how it's evolved. Obviously, you came in 2013 and you had your parameters and the way you wanted to coach athletes, and you've learned from that. What's the biggest lesson you've learned over coaching these last 7 years with the Brooks Beast?
I've become more flexible on the science principles. I was more textbook because I have a graduate degree in exercise physiology and published in biomechanics. And so I had this like very, it was almost like a little bit dogmatic, I would say, in terms of like, here's what you need to do to run these things. And it was very equation oriented. I've got a lot more like flexible in there. Like there's a little bit more of like this kind of art, like thought process when I'm coaching and taking risks with it, with workouts, but being really transparent with the athletes at that. So that's evolved more. Like you'll see me at the track and I'll be like, well, what do you want to do right now? Or you know what? Let's try doing 2 less. Like I'll literally say it. And that if you were just came like, oh, does he know what the hell he's doing? Like, let's try 2 less. Like, what was the plan coming in here? Yeah. And so I wouldn't have done that early on.
Sure.
Yeah, that's been a pretty big evolution. I definitely am more interested now in the psychology and neurotransmitters and what's going on with brain chemistry than I knew about. You don't learn about that much in grad school for physiology, and so like I've had a lot of experience in that, a lot more appreciation to that. There's a lot more conversation around that. And I'm more, I think this is probably a product of the team, the individuals that I'm working with over the last 2 years. But like, I'm more myself. Like I'm totally fine with making a mistake and, like having fun at practice and really enjoying it. And so, not that I wasn't then, but I was like that analogy where you're like gripping the steering wheel really tight. Like that was me from like 13 till 17. And so I was freaking stressed all the time, and I get stressed for sure now, but it's different. Like I just kind of had to look in the mirror, and the pandemic's been somewhat helpful with that, where it's like, okay, well, like I want to be doing this when I'm, Gag's age, hopefully. Like that's kind of like what you want to do. And so if I am going at this right now, assuming my brain and body can make it, I probably won't want to do this because this is not fun. And so trying to be like really practice what I preach with the athletes, because one of our maxims is fun also. And so like having gratitude and having fun, and the leader of the team is the coach. And so like, that's gotta be me too. And so, yeah, there's been a definite evolution. Like some of the principles are there for sure. Athlete first, trial and effect, like having a scientific foundation. Those things aren't going to change if I'm fortunate to do this for 30, 40 more years, but like those new things are changing. And I hope that it's something that I actually try to do every year. I try to change a little bit each year. You know, the roadmap gets a little bit more detailed. And so of course I got to be flexible to make changes. And the athletes are a big part of that, because I tell them, like, your kind of job is to make me better. You know, like when we signed Nia Akins, like this is going to be, I'm going to learn from her. Garrett Heath, you brought him up. Like, I've learned a lot from Garrett. Garrett's like, you know, general out there. Like, he helps me quite a bit. He looks around the corner. You got a Stanford master's grad. Like, he's you don't get any smarter than Garrett. So like, he helps me a lot with things. And even the younger guys like Josh Kerr and David Ribich, same deal. Those guys are sharp. And so I try to have, like, encourage bottom up leadership with that. And so, you know, because that helps me do my job better. I look smarter, even if it's just them, the one that's really doing it. So I'm cool with that.
I got to meet Josh in where was it? Oh, Birmingham in 17, I think, or 18. Was coming out of the hotel. Yeah, with Worlds, coming out with his folks, and told them I enjoyed watching him run. And I said, yeah, there's people who actually know who you are in the United States, and he thought that was pretty funny. But a good young man. I mean, that's awesome. One of the things. You got a great group of athletes, you know. And,
I know.
It's just so. What's your total number of athletes right
now? With Nia, we're at 13. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is that about max size for you?
Yeah. We have some room for one more. And that's pretty max. Yeah. So I was at 17 in 2016, and it could have been a mix of, like, my experience but maybe I could go back to that point, but that was way too much for me. Because I'm really big on, like, low injury rate and development, and it's hard to do that with that many people. And so, you know, we do get fortunate enough where we signed someone like Josh, who made a team in college. He's the only person we've ever signed, though, that's done that. We've never had somebody at that, like, running 8 standards in college. So fundamentally, everybody that we've ever signed needed to get better. And so, you know, like, I think in order to develop athletes and having different events, different genders, like the 12 range is like, I can pay attention to them. I'm not working 80 hours a week, you know? So that seems like a sweet spot. Maybe if I get more efficient in this job, it could go up, or if we bring in some staff, it can go up from there. But that's a good number for us right now.
What does Brooks want to achieve with Brooks Beast? What does Jim tell you are your communications with the brand? What do they want from Brooks Beast?
Well, a few things. Like, one is that we help make the running, because Brooks, all they do is running, and so having a premier team makes that more authentic.
Sure.
I think. So that's one thing. Like, if you're going to buy a product, you're like, oh, well, some of the best people in the world who are super picky, could wear whatever they want. They wear it, and they want to be there, and they're testing it, and they're helping drive the innovation from it. Like, we're doing this big project with some footwear starting next week. It's a 2-week project, and they're going to use athletes totally for all the testing. And if you've looked at the footwear over since the Beasts have started in the apparel, they've always been good, but things have changed. I mean, like, I've worked at 4 brands. Brooks makes some damn good running shoes. I mean, they really do. And our apparel's gotten a lot better. And so that's the product team and the merchandisers being able to connect with the athletes and honestly use them. You can't get any better users than, like, somebody who's just training full time, super picky. I mean, that's the best person to ask, you know? And then the other thing with Brooks, which I think is a cool part of, and it mixes with us as well, is like, they've had that Run Happy marketing campaign probably since you can remember. And so the foundational element of that is inspiring people to get out the door and run. And so, athletes are like, that's the ultimate inspiration. I mean, I watched the Last Dance. I'm from Chicago. Like, I'm a very unathletic 5'9.5" guy, and I love playing basketball growing up because the Bulls were doing that. And so the athletes can get, like, you know, my dad is 65. He does our core routine. And my brother just had his first kid. and he got you, if you've had kids, like not, you don't have time. Him and his wife are training for a 5K using some of the workouts that the beasts do. I mean, granted, they only have like 40 minutes a day to exercise, but like that's the stuff that athletes, that Brooks is using these athletes to do, is getting people out the door. Cool. It does not matter. Like, you trying to run your first 5K ever, get off the couch and lose weight, or you trying to like really better yourself. What do you want to do? Because we have 13 different people that all have different stories that connect with you. So, those are the two things I think that have been really huge that the Beast have provided for the company. So, yeah.
Cool. So we're down to about 4 minutes, and I wanted to ask you, my final question will be what you love about coaching.
I wanted to be a doctor, and then I wanted to be a teacher. That was like my college thing.
Sure.
And I couldn't see him because of freaking COVID, but like, I'm still really close friends with my high school and college teammates. And if I think of those two jobs, like teaching and being a doctor, and I think of my teammates, I think the one thing that's common around those 4 examples is the person. And so for me, my favorite part of coaching is the connection with the individual. And in my other jobs, even my coworkers, I don't get to know them at the level I get to know an athlete. It's a very like interesting working relationship. And like when you were talking about Josh, I was like, oh yeah, John and Jill, like, and his parents are awesome. I've met him a bunch of times. Like his brother is a really good rugby. Like knowing that, like when Henry was on the 4x1 that broke the world record, his dad is from Connecticut. So his dad drove in, and his dad took us out to steak dinner and just like paid for it. I'm like, I can pay for it. He's like, nope, my son's on a world record. Like that stuff just makes me happy.
Yeah.
And getting to know them and seeing that, like, like Nick Simmons just got married. His wife Tiana's awesome. They got this Chihuahua that always tries to bite me when I go down to Eugene. Like I wouldn't have known Nick if I didn't get to work with him like that. And so, like the personal part, getting through these struggles like we're dealing with right now, like those are the things that keep me really interested in a job, and that's what makes me love it for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to add a final question. If you've got a room full of high school coaches, socially distanced, and you're trying to talk to them about how they keep their kids running during this time, could you give them a couple suggestions?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. Like, I don't know with high school kids how. With the older athlete, like I'm really honest with them. I tell them like, hey, I don't have a roadmap, guys and girls. Like I'm going to work with you and try to figure it out. So I think within saying that vulnerability there, I think a lot of communication, it goes further than you would think. It might seem, especially when you're on these video things, like it's hard to connect and it seems kind of like pointless. I've done a couple talks with some high schools because I have a lot of high school coaching friends. Like we've done some Zoom calls where I get to talk to the athletes and answer questions. And the feedback it's not me being the reason why, but like the feedback of just bringing somebody in, bringing the team together goes a long way. So communication's got to be there, thinking outside the box. Like don't underappreciate the little things you can do over technology and like what that does for somebody. And the other part is like, or 2 parts I would say, is keep the goals like really small. Like what's a 1 week at a time? What are these little targets we can hit? And within that, keeping it fun. I mean, we do different workouts and I say, hey, you know what? We've never done this. You brought up Lopez. Like I read the book Running with the Legends.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, we're going to try this workout. This guy tried it. I've wanted to try it for 7 years. I'm always worried about Peyton Jordan or, Monaco or USA's, but we don't have really a race. Let's see how it goes. Let's just try it. And they're like, cool. So like having some fun with that, I think, if you're that can really go a long way. I hope, like, again, there's no roadmap, but those are the things that I've been doing. Those are some of the principles that I did early on that I'm going to keep as we've gone through this. So,
okay. I got one more quick thing for you. I'm going to give you the names of 5 different athletes and you're allowed up to 3 words to describe them. Okay.
Yeah.
Nick Simmons.
Irreverent, talented, and brash.
Okay. Garrett Heath.
Serious, intelligent. I would say hardy.
Ryan Vail.
tough, well, I would say tough, focused, and he's stoic.
Okay. Katie Mackey.
Dynamic, emotional, competitive.
Des Linden.
Well, I'm smiling. So funny.
Okay.
Man, I think she's, what's the right word for this? When somebody evolves. Probably a learner. So it's a funny learner and steady.
Okay. Do you have a favorite coach or a coach role model?
Oh, yeah. Dan Paff.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say Stu McMillan. Those are the two that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. I probably said Stu, so Stu doesn't get hurt feelings if he watches this, but no, those are the two for sure. Yeah. Dan and Stu. I had a long conversation with Dan about Nia just on Wednesday. He's huge for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. He's an amazing man. Danny Mackey, thank you so much for this afternoon. It's great catching up with you.
My pleasure, Larry.
I'm probably going to bug you another time about training and stuff, but I just wanted to kind of get a chance to catch up with you. And my best year athletes, I'm excited to see how Nia does next year when all this stuff gets a little better. Stay safe, my friend. And
you too. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
Okay. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is Socialing the Distance. We're with Danny Mackey. He's the head coach at the Brooks Beast. Danny, thanks again. Take care.
Thank you, Larry. All right, you too.
Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. It's Socialing the Distance. Today, we did a Socialing the Distance with Danny Mackey, one of my favorite coaches. He's been the coach at Brooks Beast since inception back in 2013. And we spent 35 minutes with him. And we covered a plethora of topics. Danny's in Seattle and workout. He finished a little early due to rain, and I'm in San Jose, California. And this is the epilogue of our conversation. So what did we talk about? Okay, so many things. One is how his philosophy of coaching had changed since 2013. He said that he has become a little more relaxed. It sounds like it's more of a art and science. He was a little possessed with the scientific method, as one might say. It's a quote from Kenny Moore about Ron Hill. But I've digressed. So Danny, in doing my Wikipedia research and reading Mario Fried's interview, which was fantastic, Danny had about 170 college units, so probably 50 more than he needed to graduate. Yeah, so he had like a major and 2 minors, and so he was kind of into it. You know, it's the 6-year program, or for me it was a 7-year program, but that's another story. Danny has been coaching the Brooks Beast since 2013, so he's got athletes from 800 meters all the way up to the marathon. Today, we really talked about philosophy, how he's dealing with athletes during the COVID crisis. Workouts used to take 4 to 5 hours on a daily basis between the running, the warm-up, the weight work, other behind-the-scenes work. But now it's a little bit shorter, and for 13 weeks, they didn't work out. He is a group. He normally works out with them Monday through Friday, and they, on Saturdays and Sundays, they work out on their own. And this was done because the Brooks Beast are a democratically run organization. It was the power of the vote, and majority ruled, and they said, you know what? We love you, Danny, but you need a life, and here's workouts Monday through Friday, and then we're going to kind of do our recovery days on Saturday and Sunday. So I think that's kind of cool. I like Danny. He's much more relaxed than he was in 2016. He's got a wonderful group of athletes from Garrett Heath and Katie Mackey and Josh Kerr to, I think it's Nia Long. It's a new athlete. And he's got a young 800-meter runner, which is pretty cool. So it'll be fun to see how his athletes develop and continue to develop. One of the other questions I asked him is, in this modern age, how long is an athlete's career? 5 to 6 years, 7 to 12 years? He kind of thinks it's that 7 to 12. And he says he starts talking to athletes in the beginning about, hey, this is a limited time of your life. You're going to be doing other things afterwards. So, and it's hard for kids to realize at 22 that they think they're going to run the rest of their lives. Think about it. Think about when you were 22. It was a few years ago for me. 39. So to be exact, so that was a while, longer than most of you guys have been alive. So, but Danny comes across very, very thoughtful, and he knows that flexibility is needed with athletes. So say you're planning, 8 quarters, and the athlete's having a rough time, and it's better to have 6 quarters and be successful and shake it up a little bit. And he said sometimes that kind of concerns some people, but he sees that as growth for him. And I understand that. But I think the biggest thing with Danny is that, like all good coaches, he has an emotional tie in a relationship with his athletes. And while you try to kind of give yourself some separation, it happens. And he cares for his athletes. And he shared a story about Ryan Vail. Ryan had a tough time in Atlanta and had a tough time. He was hoping to run Berlin and wasn't able to do that. So it's art and science with coaching. And I think this first session with Danny was fantastic. We thank Danny Mackey for his time. And I look forward to talking with him again. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun and Socialing the Distance. The epilogue for Danny Mackey is over.